Chapter 172. Kids these days. Madame Yin laughed dumbly. She first asked the two guides for the results of the clearance scan. With a glance, she knew what was going on. She walked in front of the drunken Mr. Hu and separated the two of them. She said to Luo Nan, "Student, this is the VIP area of Frost River Reality. Judging from the clearance of your equipment, you shouldn't be here." Wait. On the other side, Mr. Hu had sobered up quite a bit. However, when he spoke hurriedly, his tongue was not as smooth as before. After saying wait a few times, he finally managed to squeeze out the rest of the sentence. That brother, you look familiar. Can you take off the mirror and take a look?" Although his words were rough, the meaning behind them was surprisingly polite. Luo Nan's heart skipped a beat. He carefully looked at Mr. Hu's face and saw that the outline of his face was a bit swollen due to excessive drinking. He actually looked a bit familiar. After thinking for a bit, he took off the goggles. With just this one movement, a piece of information suddenly popped up in the corner of his memory. Senior Hu. Aha, Luo Nan, Junior Nan. Mr. Hu shook off the guide's support and came forward to give Luo Nan a hug. Luo Nan could not avoid it for fear that he would not be able to hold on and fall to the ground. Yes, Luo Nan remembered now. This Mr. Hu was the one who had brought the construction society, Yan Yonghua's lawyer, and a bunch of other people to Gear last week. He was the student council cadre who had come to visit. He was Xie Junping's best friend. Xie Junping called him Hu San. His real name should be Hu Huaying. According to Xie Junping, this person was a bit muddle-headed, but he was a reliable person. However, was his relationship with Hu San that good? On the other side, although Hu Huaying was 70 to 80% drunk, his heart was still clear. He and Luo Nan had only met once, but Xie Junping and Luo Nan were not. Hu Huaying also worked in the club activities department. He had seen everything that Xie Junping had been doing for the past week. Xie Junping had been running back and forth for Luo Nan to join the order club. Ever since they knew each other, when had he ever seen this young master so worried? Even though he was very clear about Xie Junping's sexual orientation, he couldn't help but think, could it be that this bro turned the Xie family's playboy gay? As Xie Junping's best friend, Hu Huaying was very clear about her attitude. Showing enthusiasm was just the beginning, the key was the next step. "Junior brother, you have to go to class tomorrow, right? If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Are you done?" Hu Huaying expressed that she had always been concerned, and took the opportunity to get closer. "You want to experience the VIP area, right? Actually, you could have just told me in advance. I still have some shares here." She lowered her voice and raised her voice. "Of course, there's also manager Yinlu. Junping and I call her sister. She's always taken care of us. Sister Lu, this is my junior Luo Nan. He's very close to Junping." Luo Nan. Yinlu stared at Luo Nan. The latter lowered his eyelids, looking a little introverted. He called out softly, "Sister Lu?" Hu Huaying saw that Luo Nan was too introverted and was afraid that he would feel awkward. She laughed. "I made a mistake today. No matter what, since I'm here, I'll let junior brother stay in the same room as me. I'm just going to sleep anyway." Luo Nan opened his mouth but didn't say anything. His gaze returned to Yin Li's face and he couldn't look away. Yin Li smiled faintly. Her gaze swept past Hu Huaying and Luo Nan. "I still have to give face to the little boss. Sister Lu, you're magnanimous." Hu Huaying laughed and pulled Luo Nan to thank Yin Lu. Luo Nan said, "Thank you, Sister Lu." His eyelids lowered again. At this time, Yin Lu sighed helplessly. "Luo Nan, I'll call you Brother Nan. You should know how the restrictions came about. You can experience it in the VIP room, but you must take care of your body." "Oh, your body hasn't recovered yet, right? I understand." Hu Huaying patted her chest and took charge. God knows if the alcohol had passed. Yinlu nodded at them. "Little boss and Brother Nan, you guys have fun. There's a problem with the renovation of Sky Capital Water Village. I'll go take a look." Hu Huaying laughed. "Once the branch opens, it'll be your territory once you leave the school gate. It's all for you bosses to earn money." Yinlu shook her head and smiled. She bid farewell to the two and walked into the elevator. Before the elevator door closed, Luo Nan glanced at Yinlu again. However, he was caught by Yinlu. This female manager, who had an extremely outstanding appearance and style, gave Luo Nan another smile. She gently waved her hand, bidding him farewell. Then the two guides picked the rooms and led Hu Huaying and Luo Nan to the inner part of the VIP area. According to Hu Huaying's introduction, the overall structure of the VIP area was distributed like a swarm. They were all separated luxurious rooms. Everything in the gaming area below could be found here. This chapter is not finished. Please continue. And it would only be more exquisite. The VIP rooms were like the private rooms below. However, the gaming area was integrated into it. There was also a scanning area in the room. Under the guidance of the two guides, Luo Nan re-entered this area and started scanning again. This time all the permissions were unlocked and a new set of peripheral equipment was sent over. The two guides had gone through professional training. They stepped forward and helped Luo Nan put on the combat suit and take care of the equipment. Ever since Luo Nan could remember, he had never received the treatment of having someone help him dress. Frankly speaking, there was an indescribable comfort when 4 delicate hands touched his body, be it physiology or psychology. He was even a bit embarrassed. This time there was no trace of acting involved. Hu Huaying was overjoyed. She kept egging Luo Nan on, wanting to see the world in chaos. The short-haired guide was very courageous. She saw that Luo Nan really did not have much experience. He was a standard rookie, so she deliberately reached out to touch his chest and teased him, "Your acting is quite good. You even called yourself Frost River number 3. You scared us." Luo Nan's heart skipped a beat. He whispered in a hoarse voice, "Can you not tell Manager Ian about this? It's embarrassing. We're not that talkative." As she spoke, the short-haired guide seemed to have thought of something. She turned her head and muttered to her companion. The two of them tried hard to hold back their laughter, but they were not very successful. Little did they know that they could not hide anything from Luo Nan's mental senses. The short-haired guide said, "This kid definitely has a maternal complex." When he looked at Manager Ian, his eyes were glued to her. What could Luo Nan say? He could only pretend that he did not know. It was fine as long as these two people agreed to his request. The problem was that the two guides were not the only ones who thought this way. Hu Huaying was the same. She leaned on Luo Nan's shoulder with the help of alcohol. "Junior Nan, that sister Lu is beautiful but not easy to mess with. Don't get hot-headed or you'll be embarrassed in the future." What the hell was going on? Luo Nan was speechless for a moment. The real reason he paid attention to Ian Lu was actually very simple. They had met before. However, it was through the Wraith Sign's perspective. At that time, Ian Lu appeared at the Blood Flame Order's sacrificial activities as a deputy first ablatum. She was fully deserving of being a high-ranking member of the Order. Frost River reality was worthy of being a cooperative project between the government, the military, and the society. Now even the Order wanted to get involved. He just did not know if the major shareholders knew about the identity of a sensitive person like Ian Lu. Or was it just a coincidence? Chapter 173. Hu Huaying was still chattering away. Sister Lu is a talent in both technology and management. She was poached by the company at a high price. Apparently she has a very powerful background. It's not like no one has tried to get her before, but they all ended up in disgrace. Luo Nan could more or less obtain some information about Ian Lu from Hu Huaying's chatter. This was in contrast to what he learned from the Wraith Sign. However, Hu Huaying quickly diverted the topic. She was eager to bring Luo Nan to experience the relatively easy-to-get kind of experience. Luo Nan's response to this was to wear a special tactical helmet peripheral to block out all of the outside world's messy information. The default option of the tactical helmet was augmented reality. The interior of the VIP arena room was designed to look like a starship. Coupled with a bit of AR technology, it was a pretty good immersive experience. However, Luo Nan soon lost his cool. The tactical helmet was gradually affecting his 5 senses to help him further enhance the experience. However, it was precisely this influence that stimulated Luo Nan's mental senses. Under the circumstances where his 5 senses were confused, his all-encompassing senses began to take over everything. Illusory and real scenes intertwined. In the end, the real side still prevailed. Under the clairvoyance of his mental senses, the light and shadow effects were revealed one by one. There was no longer any reality to speak of. Luo Nan felt a bit helpless. This was an unexpected trouble. If this trend continued, he would probably be cut off from virtual reality in the future. Hu Huaying and the two guides were absolutely unable to understand Luo Nan's feelings. After routinely asking a few questions about his impressions, they quietly retreated to avoid disturbing Luo Nan's immersion experience. They each did their own thing. Little did they know that Luo Nan's mental senses gave him a better understanding of their actions. The long-haired guide retreated first. The short-haired guide flirted with Hu Huaying for a while before leaving with a smile on her face. Hu Huaying's anger was ignited. It was not appropriate for her to be presumptuous beside Luo Nan. She could only laugh and curse as she went to the resting area to find a place to sleep. However, he soon received a call. It was probably one of his friends urging him to hurry up. After refusing twice, he could only helplessly get up and quietly leave the room. Just like that, Luo Nan was the only one left in the entire VIP room to carry out his boring attempts. After a few tries, he finally lost all his patience. He took off the tactical helmet and walked out of the high-class fully enclosed maglev cabin. He was lost in thought. This situation wasn't right. If it was only for normal people to use, it would be fine, but from Bai Xinyan and Brother Octopus. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. It was obvious that the association was involved in this project. There were a lot of mentally enhanced people like him in the association. If they all had this kind of out-of-character experience, then wouldn't the Frost River waterway become a joke? Luo Nan discovered that he might have taken a wrong path when he thought about this logic. He hurriedly looked down at his wristband and found the details of temporary privileges in the social privileges section. He then waved his hand. As expected, the system guidance with temporary authority had yet to end. It was still reminding him of the relevant location, and the target was still Frost River number 3. He should have realized it a long time ago. The authority Bai Xinyan gave him was clearly not compatible with the local reality system. They might not even be on the same data chain. You should have told me then. But that deputy officiant is at the side. Am I thinking too much? Luo Nan felt that he had done quite a few unnecessary things just now. When all was said and done, he lacked social experience and his vigilance was too strong. Sometimes he made things complicated. He thought about how he had asked the two guides to keep it a secret not too long ago. Now that he had to ask them for help, it was inevitable that he would be embarrassed again. Luo Nan could not go back to the past. He could only shake his head and walk out with his tactical helmet between his legs. Just as he walked out of the door, he remembered that there was actually a call service in the VIP room. He rolled his eyes at the sky. But at this time the system guidance on his wristband came. It showed that the Frost River number 3 he had been searching for a long time had entered the signal link range. Do you want to activate it? Luo Nan was dumbfounded. Then he chose yes. There was a soft sound. The door of a room in front of Luo Nan opened automatically. It was originally pitch black inside, but then the lights automatically lit up. Luo Nan walked over. After he entered, the door closed automatically, isolating the inside from the outside. He felt quite emotional for a moment. He had originally come to examine his body openly. How did he end up doing it sneakily in a moment of carelessness? When the door closed, his wristband clearly vibrated, realizing the data link. The system guidance was fully activated. A very classic virtual image of a female. In any case, it was the type that Luo Nan found familiar. It was projected before his eyes. Hello, Explorer Luo Nan. Welcome to a brand new adventure. I am your guide Nina. According to the rules of the adventure manual, please enter the scanning area and equip yourself with the appropriate equipment. The scene guidance started just like that. Luo Nan confirmed that it seemed that this room, or perhaps the permission given to him by Bai Xinyan, directly locked the game project. It did not give him the opportunity to choose. This was similar to his experience in the VIP room. This chapter is not finished. Please continue. It was not quite the same. This was nothing. Luo Nan followed the guide and entered the scanning area. This was the third time tonight. The scanning this time was more detailed than the previous 2 times. The duration was longer as well. It even required him to do a few sets of movements from time to time against the released demonstration video. There was no doubt that this gave off a more professional feeling. Luo Nan could feel that the combat suit on his body was undergoing fine adjustments according to his movements, making it more comfortable. Then should he put on the helmet that was placed aside? As he was thinking, the helmet beside him flashed with red light. The virtual guide, Nina, spoke softly. Explorer Luonan, the system has confirmed that your current tactical helmet does not meet the requirements of the adventure. It needs to be changed. Please follow the guide and perform data binding on the new helmet. At the same time, the automatic mechanical platform turned around and presented a new tactical helmet to Luonan. Luonan took it and scanned it. It seemed to be no different from the previous one just by looking at its appearance. He shook his head and put on the new helmet. But the following interface made him a bit surprised. The interface was pitch black. There was only a silver-white dot of light in front of him. The system guidance asked him to focus his attention on the dot of light. Luonan naturally did as he was told. Next, the dot of light split up. 1 became 2, 2 became 4, and they spread out to the two sides. Soon they turned to the limits of the range of his vision. But the system guidance still asked him to lock onto the additional dot of light. If it was a normal person, they would probably be stupefied. But for Luonan, who had grasped all-encompassing mental senses, it could not be any easier. Very naturally, he entered the level of mental senses from the basic visual senses. That's right, this was a special guide for ability users. Luonan suddenly realized. The dot of light split up into 360 dots. They covered the front, back, left, right, up, down, and so on. Luonan locked onto them one by one. Then all the dots of light converged into one. They were located right above the top of his head and pressed into his skull. Luonan's mental senses automatically cut inwards. Suddenly, countless lights and shadows appeared before his eyes. They interweaved with each other. After stabilizing, Luonan discovered that he had already entered the interior of a starship. The door that had just opened was in front of him. A metal-constructed corridor extended forward. Luonan hesitated for a moment before extending his hand to touch the opened alloy door. He saw that he was wearing a glove on his hand. The hard touch of the glove was fed back to him in an incomparably real way. The high wall of illusion and reality shattered with a bang at this moment. Chapter 174. On the east coast of Xia City, there was a dangerous section of the Huanhai Highway. Beyond the guardrail of the highway was a cliff. Under the dark sky, the fine rain was like mist, erasing the boundary between the cliff and the sky. This Huanhai Highway was the first-class highway to be paved with magnetic pavement. In the beginning, it was used as a technical practice. Later, because of its status as a classic, it gradually became the preferred choice for street racers. Although the weather was bad, the thrill-seeking racers did not mind. Sports cars sped along the highway one after another. With the help of the maglev system, they easily reached speeds of over 300 kilometers per hour. The headlights of the car were like a long sword that cut horizontally, cutting the curtain of night and the rain into pieces. They also made the cliff glisten and stand out from the hazy sea and sky. Bai Xinyan stood at the top of the cliff, looking at the staircase road that extended into the distance. The cars racing on the road were like fireflies moving in the opposite direction, gradually becoming indistinguishable in the curtain of rain. Xia City is still the same. There's no difference between it and Luoyang City. Faced with the harsh environment after the war, it was difficult to maintain the cultural characteristics of a large metropolitan area that was built in a hurry. A high degree of homogeneity was inevitable. It was precisely in such a boring jungle of steel that the seemingly turbulent but actually monotonous structure of human nature was created. Because of this, every gifted type is worthy of special treatment, from the perspective of species diversity. Bai Xinyan had her hands in the pockets of her windbreaker. She faced the sea breeze and took a step forward. The fluttering raindrops condensed into fine ice crystals under her feet, carrying her body. Just like this, it condensed, shattered, and solidified, forming a faintly discernible ice crystal staircase. She crossed over the multi-layered road and arrived at the bottom of the cliff. There was no trace of the void behind her. Right now, Bai Xinyan was standing on a protruding platform about 10 meters above sea level. It was big enough for two people to stand on. On the inside of the platform, there was a recess of more than 3 meters deep and nearly 2 meters high. Traces of artificial excavation could be seen. Bai Xinyan didn't go in. She looked around and saw that there was an open waterproof metal box inside. Women's clothes were scattered messily on top of it, already soaked by the drizzle that blew in. How many years has it been since I've changed my casual lifestyle? Bai Xinyan looked away and stood on the platform facing the sea. On one side of the sea, the rain fell like a curtain. It was a hazy scene. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. The wind and rain blew against her windbreaker, making it flutter loudly, but it didn't make her feel the slightest bit wet. Below her, among the jagged rocks, the tide was rising. Thick white foam floated on the blurry outline of the tide, swaying back and forth. Bai Xinyan gazed at the surface of the sea. After a moment, the corners of her lips curled up. The rain that fell around her once again turned into fine ice crystals. They fell onto the rocks in the tide with a rustling sound. In the time it took to take 2 or 3 breaths, the constantly swaying white foam of the tide had turned into all sorts of strange ice crystals, and the chill was still seeping into the seawater. Very soon, the reef and the half-frozen tide formed a twisted silhouette that looked like the face of a ferocious ghost. One, Bai thought. Bai. He counted to 3. Suddenly, amidst the sound of the wind and the waves, there was a clanging sound that spread far and wide. The ghost face on the surface of the sea suddenly tore open. Correspondingly, the reef cracked and the seawater split. A slender figure broke out of the water from the middle of the crack and screamed, "Frozen, frozen to death, frozen to death." Zhang Yingying rushed out of the water. Her tight-fitting diving suit with red and black stripes showed off her good figure, but there was a layer of floating ice on her. Her loose hair was also covered with ice beads, messy and lacking in layers, which made her look a bit awkward. Her bare feet stepped on the slippery rock wall, and with a leap she flew onto the platform. The sharp aura around her body had yet to dissipate, and as she cut through the curtain of rain, there was a hissing sound. On the platform, Bai Xinyan did not dodge. Instead, she smiled and opened her arms wide to embrace the figure that was charging at her. The camel-colored windbreaker was flipped up and covered both of them. Ah, white salt, white salt. Zhang Yingying was so excited that she wanted to roll around in Bai Xinyan's arms and rub off the ice droplets. Bai Xinyan, on the other hand, did not seem to care at all. She hugged the young girl in her arms tightly, and her chin rested on her hair that was covered in ice beads. She did not say anything, but she continued to smile. The excitement of meeting an old friend finally died down a little. Zhang Yingying put some distance between them. When she saw Bai Xinyan's face, she couldn't help but take a few bites. Aha. You haven't changed at all. You've been in the lab all day and you haven't melted. But when she truly came back to her senses, she lowered her head to look at the surface of the sea, where the chill had yet to subside. She swallowed back the words she was about to say. Wow. How did you do it? This sort of freezing air has already far exceeded the scope of normal. You're no longer just an architect. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. An extraordinaire? Not yet. It's just a little trick. It's not the same as your white rainbow. But I haven't seen you for 3 years, and you've suddenly become very serious in your training. Zhang Yingying rolled her pretty eyes. Yeah. I'm making a fool of myself. I still want face. Do you? Bai Xinyan used her cheek to lightly rub against the young girl's delicate and slightly cool cheek. Zhang Yingying giggled. Then she asked Bai Xinyan about her plans. This time we're in Xia City. We're going to be at least a month. How are we going to arrange our schedule? How about you live with me? We'll go play to our heart's content every day. I'm going to see the boss tomorrow morning. Then I'll deal with other matters. I also have an appointment tonight, but it's just a formality. Bai Xinyan's wristband vibrated as she spoke. She glanced at it and nodded slightly. The society has dug up quite a few new people in recent years. The scout is pretty good. Scout. Oh right. That fellow is your patient. Zhang Yingying's eyeballs swiveled. A few thoughts floated to the surface. Bai Xinyan saw this and knew that this scout was already registered with Zhang Yingying. She took the opportunity to understand the situation. The precision of this person's senses is very impressive. It's the precision direction, but it's closer to the microscopic. Why does he have the nickname Scout? This person, he really does have some talent. Zhang Yingying blinked. She was a bit baffled. You guys haven't met yet, right? How can you tell? I rely on my skills. Bai Xinyan shook her wrist, letting the data on her wristband be mapped out. Zhang Yingying could only understand a part of it, but she grasped the key information. Frost River Waterway? That fellow's nerves are damaged and he hasn't even awakened yet. Can he hold on? Is there a need to torment him like this? Bai Xinyan smiled. When a patient receives treatment, he has to walk with two legs. One is confidence and the other is obedience. Right now I'm just strengthening the latter element. Zhang Yingying had a baffled expression. That fellow can be a bit jumpy at times, but he hasn't started yet, right? Yeah. He's not being disobedient. I just want to make him more obedient. Oh, pervert. Chapter 175. Luo Nan stood at the entrance of the metal passageway, experiencing the blurry boundary between illusion and reality. Nina's upper body appeared on his retina. Explorer Luo Nan, you need to make a short jump in order to infiltrate the planet's defensive perimeter. Please enter the jump pod. This scenario seemed familiar. The last time he was tricked into coming here by Mo Han, it was more or less the same. Luo Nan walked into the open metal passageway. The light gradually dimmed. At the end of the passageway, the operating console flickered with light. He could see the stars in the depths of space through the circular window. Behind the operating console was a classic high-back starship chair. Luo Nan walked over and sat down. Through Nina's guidance, he adjusted the equipment on the operating console one by one and revised the parameters. All of this was done to help the player adapt to the virtual environment, to minimize the influence of reality to the greatest extent. Luo Nan used his picky eyes to inspect the feeling of his fingertips, the changes in lighting and the shifting of angles, but it was hard to find any obvious flaws. This degree of realism had already exceeded the limits of reality for the public. It should be due to the mental guidance that had been carried out before. Everything was ready. The window displayed the meaningless coordinates of the adventure area. Nina's voice rang out once more. Please close your eyes and grasp your balance. Resist the dizziness from the short jump. The adventure begins. Luo Nan's body trembled slightly. A peculiar vortex of light appeared in front of the jump pod. The pod started and accelerated. The force of inertia pushed Luo Nan to the back of the chair, and the world spun and flipped. Luo Nan instinctively closed his eyes. The noise of electromagnetism and machinery, as well as the sound of an alarm in the distance, were exceptionally clear. Another jolt followed right after. The feeling of accelerated rotation suddenly disappeared, and the force of inertia flung him out fiercely. What welcomed him was an ice-cold stream of water. A muffled boom rang out and water splashed in all directions. Just as the pain arrived, an even deeper chill penetrated his bones. This was without a doubt a rough landing. In the Frost River Channel, the moment one fell represented the complete transformation from reality to virtual. The vast majority of the participants' perception was produced by the stimulation of the nervous system by electrical signals. Luo Nan's experience was more realistic than the vast majority of the participants. Compared to the miserable experience from before, this reality was much more realistic. This chapter is not finished. Please continue. Reality was still precious. He opened his eyes and stood up from the water. His surroundings were still pitch black, but there was a faint light flickering at the edge of his vision. The water below was up to his knees. The current wasn't slow and it was bone-chilling cold. There were also broken pieces of ice floating on the surface of the water. When they bumped into him, he felt a slight pain. At this moment, the communication device on his collar vibrated slightly. Nina's slightly urgent voice rang out, mixed with some chaotic background noise, continuing to make the environment more real. Explorer Luo Nan, you've just experienced a failed short-range jump. Your combat uniform is damaged to a certain degree. Please take note of the relevant report. For now, please investigate the surrounding situation and send back the relevant information so that we can guide the next step. Before he could finish his sentence, a rustling noise came from the communicator. A strange voice said, "Welcome to the Frost River Bar. Please follow the waterway all the way. We have prepared wine for our guests to warm up." Nina's voice cut in again. "It seems that there are other people here. You can go on an unplanned adventure. Please take note. From the information sent back, the water of the waterway has been mixed with a strange substance. The water temperature has already reached below freezing point. Please move your body to avoid freezing. From this moment on, the challenge of the Frost River waterway began. According to the rules of Frost River reality, the winner of the challenge would enter the Frost River bar, obtain a prize, leave their game ID and enter the global rankings. Luonan just didn't know what the result of this ability user version would be. Luonan followed the route indicated by the tactical helmet. He went against the flow of the water and advanced. The Frost River waterway mission was to test the adaptability of the player's body under the stimulation of a low-temperature environment. Although Luonan had tried it once, he had been defeated early on. He did not truly understand the situation inside. He only knew that the length of the waterway was very vague. Some said it was 1,500 meters, some said it was 3,000 meters. Frost River reality had never released the actual data, but it was clear that the waterway was divided into 3 sections. In other words, there were 3 levels of difficulty. The first phase of entering the waterway was about 500 meters. The test was whether the player could maintain the activity of the body under the stimulation of the cold. The middle phase was 500 to 1,000 meters. It involved techniques such as holding one's breath, diving, underwater recognition, and so on. As for the final phase, the length was not determined. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. It involved extremely high-level techniques. It was a test for professional extreme survivalists. Last time, Luonan was only able to persist for 100 meters. He could not endure it and was kicked into protective mode. His result was quite embarrassing. The overall trend of the Frost River waterway was downward. After passing 10 meters, the depth of the icy water began to gradually increase. Soon it reached his waist. The icy water flowed with a gurgling sound. Walking in it was a difficult task, especially with the permeation of the cold. It numbed one's senses, making it very easy for a situation to occur. Luonan took a deep breath. Back when he walked in the Frost River waterway, he lost all feeling in his lower body the instant the icy water reached his waist. This time it seemed to be more or less the same. This had nothing to do with the quality of the body. Instead, it was highly related to the sensitivity of the nervous system. The only difference was that Luonan was a bit muddle-headed last time. He was very sensitive to stimulation, but he did not know where his sensitivity came from. Right now, he could clearly feel that external stimulation acted on the cold receptors of his skin, forming nerve impulses that entered his central nervous system. They were conducted all the way to the temperature regulation center of his hypothalamus. His clairvoyance of the state of his body had already entered a level that ordinary people would find it hard to reach. It was a bit strenuous to cut into the cellular scale of the human body with a sensitivity of close to 1/10 millimeter, but when combined with his personal perception, he was still able to grasp a general outline. But this way, the amount of information that needed to be processed increased substantially. A sense of exhaustion quickly assaulted him, and his rapidly decreasing body temperature increased the rate at which his energy was being consumed. Next, his legs went soft and he fell into the water. He had the helmet to protect him so he did not choke. But the torrent of ice wrapped around his helmet smashed over with tinkling sounds. The icy water overflowed into his damaged combat uniform, and the chill penetrated deep. The excessive stimulation caused his blood to flow back. His body instinctively prioritized protecting his internal organs. His hands and feet quickly became numb, making him lose the ability to move. There was a boom and the sharp, enormous ice smashed against his head. The helmet was damaged and the icy water seeped through. Luonan choked to death and his vision blurred. His consciousness became a bit fuzzy. Nina seemed to say something next to his ear, but he was no longer able to hear it. By the time his consciousness recovered, Luonan had already returned to the high-back starship chair he was in before the jump. As expected, he failed the Frost River waterway challenge. Chapter 176. Luonan leaned against the back of the chair. His hands and feet were powerless for a time. His body needed a certain amount of time to adjust to the changes in the external stimuli. Right now, a hologram was erected in front of him. The central region was a playback of the video. It displayed the details of his actions in the Frost River waterway from multiple perspectives. There was no need to elaborate on his sorry state. All sorts of data appeared around the playback. Many of them were specialized terms. Luonan didn't really understand them. Even if he understood, it was hard to understand a project that had been completely digitized. He didn't know what level it represented, whether it was good or bad, due to the lack of comparison. Luckily, he discovered that there was a rather shallow conclusion at the lower center of the hologram. The challenger's body is weak, but he possesses outstanding sensory precision. He is a precision-oriented, mentally enhanced. However, he lacks the corresponding information processing skills. He lacks control over his body. He remains in the instinctive stage. Information processing skills? Control. Luonan recalled the experience he had just experienced. He had received a lot of information, but that was all. All of his nerve impulses and related reactions were still carried out according to his body's functions. They were carried out step by step. There really wasn't much control. He was quite convinced by this evaluation. Obtaining information was one thing, but processing and controlling it was another. Luonan knew that the temperature control center of the human body was located in the hypothalamus. He also knew the relationship between the relevant control areas and the type and nature of the neurotransmitters secreted. He also possessed the corresponding soul strength. It was enough to interfere with the material plane and give sufficient stimulation to the corresponding nervous tissues. But he really didn't know what to do if he let Luonan control it. This wasn't something that could be realized with just a thought. If he really did it, what would be the priority? It must be known that the hypothalamus was an important area for regulating the internal organs and endocrine activity. If the stimulation was inappropriate, it wouldn't just be a matter of losing the challenge. He might even play himself to death on the spot. Luonan sighed. He looked at his sorry state a few more times and chose to challenge once more. Bai Xinyan wanted him to try many times before. She gave him 2 hours of time. Only a quarter of the time had passed. He still had to practice. The problem was that nothing much had changed when he entered the Frost River waterway once more. The icy water of the Frost River waterway was fine. Please continue to the next page. What gave Luonan a headache was the rapid flow of water and the enormous chunks of ice that came crashing down from time to time, as well as other debris. Under the influence of the numbness caused by the cold, Luonan simply didn't have the leeway to dodge. He could only fail again and again. Luonan's dispirited thoughts were accumulating. He wasn't afraid of failure, but he was very vexed by the feeling of powerlessness that came from being unable to fix his own problems. He had practiced a few times, but he collapsed in the first 500 meters every time. It was the same problem every time. What was the point of trying again? The accumulated emotions had already caused his soul strength to go a bit out of control. Luonan simply chose to withdraw. The sealed magnetic cabin opened and the luxurious high-back chair was restored. Luonan sat on the chair and was stunned for a moment. He smashed the armrest heavily and ignored the system notification. He took off his helmet and prepared to take a good breath. But the moment he took off his helmet, all the indicator lights around the high-back chair he was sitting on went off. The guide, Nina, disappeared, but the lights in the room lit up. The atmosphere of business was completely destroyed. His wristband vibrated again and the system prompted, "You have voluntarily exited the system. Temporary authority has been turned off." Luonan was stupefied. He looked at his watch again. Not even half of the 2-hour time limit had passed. He just wanted to take a breather. Who would have thought that the system would turn off so simply? This kind of authority was really too much of a scam. Looking at it from another angle, that Ms. Bai probably didn't plan on giving people the option to rest midway. From the looks of it, that person's temperament wasn't that easy to deal with. Luonan's heart spontaneously gave birth to vigilance. He was like a mischievous student facing a strict teacher. And very unfortunately, he did a terrible job on the first assignment that this teacher assigned. His first impression of her had probably been completely destroyed. Luonan was a bit troubled, but it was too late for regrets now. The temporary authority had failed, and the illuminated lights revealed a sense of alienation. He could only leave. At this time, the automated mechanical platform rotated to his side. This meant that he had to leave the special tactical helmet behind. Luonan was a bit reluctant to part with the helmet when he thought about the difference in experience. This made the regret in his heart grow a step further. Luonan hesitated for a moment. He didn't return it for the time being. Instead, he walked back to the scanning area and picked up the other helmet that was placed there. He grabbed one helmet in each hand. This chapter isn't finished. Please turn the page. He waved his hands. On the surface there was really no difference between the two. If Luonan hadn't gone to Hu Huaying's VIP room first and had an unsuccessful experience, he probably wouldn't have thought that a difference in equipment would cause such a huge difference in experience. But since he had already found the problem, why not continue to put in a bit of effort and thoroughly figure out what the difference was between the two helmets? Luonan couldn't restrain his curiosity. He adjusted the precision of his senses, and his soul's strength penetrated the interior of the helmet. He knew nothing about the field of precision electronics, but the design and structure of the two helmets were practically the same. This gave him a standard of reference. With this comparison there were some results. Luonan followed his mental senses to compare one area after another. Soon he discovered that there was a compartment on the helmet of Frost River No. 3 that was roughly stuck to the top of the helmet. There was a chipset installed there. The helmet brought out from Hu Huaying's VIP room also had a similar compartment, but it didn't have a chipset. Clearly this was where the difference lay. Luonan put on the tactical helmet once more and his consciousness cut in. Right now there was no system guidance, but the more it was like this, the more fundamental things could appear. He noticed the energy and information roaming within the chip while it was in a charged state. Looking at the material structure, the scale of the energy and information was several orders of magnitude smaller than the cells of the human body. However, the soul's sensitivity towards energy and information was clearly higher. It didn't need to interfere with the material plane to be able to perceive and read the information with relative clarity. Luonan was able to detect that the chipset within the helmet of Frost River No. 3 was processing energy and information. It was a very familiar structure. It was extremely familiar. Luonan thought back a bit and determined the source of this familiar feeling. Jack, the dynamo core, the Tower of Babel. Yes, the operating form of energy and information within the chipset was relatively crude and rigid. However, the mode of exchange and transformation of information was undoubtedly the Tower of Babel structure that Jack had displayed that night. A certain segment. Even if it was transplanted into the chip, the operating mode of energy and information was essentially the same. This was really unexpected. Chapter 177. The reproduction of a portion of the dynamo core's functions? Luonan came to this conclusion and was somewhat stunned. He lacked a complete understanding of the origins of the dynamo core. He had more of a guess from the conversation between Jack and Yen Yonghua. This sort of thing should be a cutting-edge product produced by the Apocalypse laboratory behind Quantum Corporation. It possessed overwhelming control over electronic devices. It was a key technology of the fourth-generation burner and could be applied to altered humans. Through special application methods, it could completely break the boundaries between altered humans and burners. For example, Jack. Such sensitive technology had suddenly appeared in Frost River Reality, a virtual attraction project for the masses. Moreover, it had appeared in such a special segment. Even if it was just a small segment, even if the government, the military, the Ability User Society and various technology companies were all involved, it was still hard to believe that this was just a coincidence of heroes having the same idea. Was it a repeated experiment hidden within the project? Or was the Apocalypse laboratory also involved in the project? Did the society know about this situation? The series of questions made Luonan a bit stupefied. It seemed that he had once again stepped into some muddy water. Of course, as long as he could face the truth, he was more than happy to do so. Luonan muttered to himself as he weighed the chip helmet a few times. His eyes gradually lit up. He certainly could not take this helmet away. He certainly could not dig out the chipset inside, but he had a more perfect substitute. His dynamo core, the external neuron. Luonan had never used his own dynamo core to build the Tower of Babel. He was worried that his body would not be able to withstand it and he would end up like Jack. But now he had a complete set of peripherals for Frost River Reality. He used the dynamo core's dominance over electronic equipment. The two combined to recreate the immersive virtual experience specifically provided for Ability users. It would not be a big problem. The experience was a small matter. If he could dig out some deep information from it, then that would be a huge harvest. Luonan could no longer endure it. He could not use Frost River No. 3, but it was fine. He could change locations. He immediately threw away the chip helmet, hugged his original equipment and strode out the door. Frost River number 3 immediately closed behind him, unable to be opened again. He did not care. He quickly walked back to Hu Huaying's VIP room. The facilities here were still in an active state. The room was empty. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. Alone. Luo Nan took a deep breath and walked onto the high-back starship chair. He put on the tactical helmet that was missing a crucial chipset and connected it to the system. For aptitude users without the mental guidance function of the chipset, the so-called tactical helmet was just a clumsy toy. They could not control the penetration of mental senses at all. All the virtual scenes became a joke. But this time Luo Nan was neither impatient nor impatient. His thoughts stirred within this disordered light and shadow. The external neuron that had been hiding between the left and right thalamus, at the location of the central mass, extended noiselessly. It pierced into the area of the chip. It sensed a bit and the structure automatically forked, docking with the reserved interface. Energy and information converged and operated. The process was clearly displayed and the structure was not much different. However, it was 100 times, 1,000 times more exquisite than a chipset simulation. And the amount of energy and information it could carry and process was also hundreds or even thousands of times more. Luo Nan felt his helmet heat up. Compared to the dynamo core's almost limitless processing power, the helmet itself was a bit unable to hold on. But this wasn't a big problem. At this very moment, Luo Nan's mental senses no longer expanded outwards. Instead, he found a direction to entrust his mental senses to. It was just like the feeling of storing his soul's strength within the dynamo core, unable to bear the heavy burden of the past few days. It was just that the inside of the dynamo core was empty before. It was like a deep and silent void. But now it had color and structure. And layer upon layer, it grew more and more gorgeous, gradually forming a world. Luo Nan's consciousness wandered within, sensing in detail. This kind of guidance was much stronger than those divided specks of light. And it wasn't like the chip, which was always separated by a layer. Instead, it was completely and thoroughly touching. It was truly wholehearted immersion. What would happen? In a flash of thought, his mind was completely immersed. It was as if time had flowed backward. When Luo Nan came back to his senses, he was already back in the jump pod. He was facing the operating console and the circular window. The pressure of the combat uniform, the weight of the helmet, and the support of the high-back chair were all transmitted back to the central nervous system through the sensors all over his body. They interweaved with the scene before his eyes, which was indistinguishable from reality and illusion. Luo Nan was completely brought into this marvelous world. At this very moment there was no system guidance. There were only 2 graphical options on the circular window before his eyes. Luo Nan's scalp went slightly numb the instant he saw the graphic. The graphic on the right was a simple sphere. This chapter has yet to end. Please turn the page. And the one on the left was the one he was the most familiar with. The visualization graphic, the format pyramid. Perhaps he had been in a daze for too long, but the system finally spoke once more. It was still Nina's clear female voice. Do you need a novice guide? Yes. Please select the activity mode. 1. Archetype mode. 2. Optional mode. Following Nina's instructions, the visualization graphic and the sphere lit up one after another on the circular window, indicating which was the archetype and which was the optional mode. Archetype, huh? Luo Nan felt a bit awkward, but a certain excitement of being able to peek into a great secret heavily bombarded his heart. He felt strands of cold air seep through the gaps of his teeth. His gaze involuntarily locked onto the most familiar graphic. Select Archetype mode. The visualization graphic lit up and shifted to the center of his field of vision. The other sphere gradually faded away. At the same time, a certain man's deep voice rang in Luo Nan's ears. In a certain sense, every person is a pile of molecular polymers. And every person's life process is the oxidation process of this pile of molecular polymers. The human body itself is in the midst of combustion. Luo Nan felt a trembling electric current run through his spine when he heard these words. A layer of goosebumps covered his entire body. He nearly jumped out of his chair for a moment. But another force made him motionless. The deep male voice continued. The combustion of ordinary people is inefficient, whether it's production, storage, or utilization. It limits our body structure, affects our lifespan, and through heredity, affects our form of existence for generations to come. But as the mysteries of life are explored in depth, it is hard for people to be satisfied with this kind of inefficient mode. People unceasingly try to improve it. Muscles, bones, internal organs, nerves, genes, consciousness. Traces of technological transformation are left behind in every domain. Yet they are fragmented and not systematic. This continues until people choose a completely new structural system to truly integrate the fragmented results together. The visualization graphic enlarged in Luo Nan's field of vision. Countless lines interweaved, outlining the outlines of bones, internal organs, nerves, and muscles. Then they pieced together to form a complete human body. The human body was placed within the visualization graphic and sat majestically. This is the burner that transcends human tradition. This is the embodiment of a certain direction of evolution. Chapter 178. Luo Nan experienced another failed teleportation and returned to the Frost River waterway with a rumbling sound. The rapid flow of water and debris flooded his body, bringing a bone-piercing chill. Luo Nan did not immediately stand up. Instead, he pressed his head, which was wearing the tactical helmet, into the water. He used the cold and rapid flow of water to clear his head. When he decided to use the dynamo core to replace the chipset and connect with the frozen star system of Frost River reality, it was hard for him to imagine that he would dig up information to this degree. It turned out that the temporary authority Bai Xinyan gave him did not touch upon the core of this virtual reality project. It was only when the antennae of the external neuron touched upon the lowest level of the frozen star system that he was able to see its deep mysteries. Simulating a burner. A burner's simulator. Frost River reality, which was loved by young people, had this kind of function. This was completely within reason. The government and the military were involved, and it was a huge project like virtual reality. It was very normal to borrow the chicken to lay the egg, to do some model construction, actual combat deduction, and so on. However, this kind of optimization that was specifically targeted at ability users and burners, as well as the technological methods used, really made one's imagination run wild. Luo Nan was already used to skipping over the familiar plot guide, so he did not pay too much attention to it. He just pondered over his current state, wanting to see what was different in the end. Suddenly, Nina's warning streaked across his ears. Please pay attention to the internal energy reserves of the archetype format. Allocate your energy properly and avoid freezing. The lines changed. Luo Nan suddenly realized something. He still remembered that Nina's guide process was to indicate that his combat uniform was damaged and that the water in the waterway was abnormal. Then she said, "Please move your body sufficiently to avoid freezing." What the hell was this internal energy reserves that suddenly popped out? The scene on his retina changed as this thought flashed through his mind. A thick, white U-shaped symbol appeared in the lower left corner, reminding Luo Nan of his attention. When Luo Nan's gaze was focused on the U-shaped symbol, the deep and low background explanation rang out once more. Through the introduction of the archetype format, burners transcend the traditional inefficient combustion mechanism of humans. They fully convert and utilize the internal energy of the human body to obtain a higher utilization efficiency. When the explanation rang out, the U-shaped symbol changed color. It changed from its initial white color to red, orange, and green. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Red, blue, purple, and then return to the original white. During this period, the colors in the U-shaped logo kept rising and falling, revealing the most important information in a visual way. Luo Nan combined the relevant text with the explanation and soon understood the meaning within. Burners could utilize the archetype format to continuously transform, store, and increase the internal energy of the human body. The water level, within the U-shaped symbol, was the amount of internal energy reserves that could be utilized. And the color changes of the spectrum were the energy forms arranged from low to high efficiency. There were a total of 6 levels. It was obvious that when a burner's internal energy reserves were very close, the key factor that determined the level of their abilities lay in the form of energy. C. The chemical energy, naturally generated in the body of a strong man weighing 100 kilograms combined with the mechanical energy, produced by his muscles, was a joke compared to the antimatter annihilation reaction, created by a strand of a baby's fetal hair. Of course, this comparison itself was a joke. But this was the secret of the burner's power, or at least a very important part of it. Luonan stood up straight. The ice-cold water continued to wash over him without end, causing the temperature of his body to rapidly decrease. He didn't move. Instead, he waited. Where was the internal energy reserves? Where was the archetype format? Even though his body was within a game system, Luonan didn't believe that he was simply playing a game. The so-called internal energy reserves and archetype format shouldn't be concepts set up by the game. They shouldn't be labeled as data. There must be some sort of concrete experience. Even though the method he used to enter this place wasn't very standard. Bzb. A strange noise rang out. The scene displayed on Luonan's retina and the background explanation by his ear became a bit fuzzy. It was clear that there was a strong interference. The interference passed in the span of a second or two. But whether it was the background explanation or Nina's system guidance, there was no follow-up. There was only the singing that came from the radio waves of the Frost River bar in the distance. It mixed with the clamor towards Luonan, who was within the waterway, and it called out, "I used the fine wine of my memories to fan the flames, to solidify her within the layer of ice." Luonan could feel the top of his head lightly vibrate amidst the cold and intermittent singing. A numb and crisp feeling spread from top to bottom, layer by layer, from the top of his head. Please continue to the next page if this chapter doesn't end. It gradually spread to his shoulders, neck, chest, back, waist, and legs. In the end, it converged to the soles of his feet. During this time, his brain, spinal cord, and even the 12 pairs of cranial nerves and 31 pairs of spinal nerves all transmitted fine feedback. Moreover, this spurred the nearly 1,000 bones, muscles, and even the billions of blood vessels and fibers in his entire body to form an innumerable signal that was transmitted back to the central nervous system of his brain. Luonan wanted to distinguish these signals one by one, to clearly understand the meaning contained within, and to instantly make the correct response. Even if Luonan's brain was transformed into a supercomputer, he still wouldn't necessarily be able to do it. But when these signals swarmed over and circled around the external neuron, they instantly separated into a marvelous order. Some were a bit stronger, some were a bit weaker. Some were a bit more urgent, some were a bit more relaxed. If Luonan were to clarify their respective positions and arrange them in a dense manner, it would be like drawing. Different shades of lines and shadows would instantly combine to form a direct and deep structural whole. Next, Luonan's consciousness naturally sprouted, directly embedding itself into the center of gravity that dominated the structural balance. Driven by some marvelous thought, Luonan sat back down in the water. He assumed the double-coiled body posture and his entire body was fixed at the bottom of the river. From the top of his head to the two sides, his shoulders, his elbows, and his knees formed two perfectly straight diagonal lines. They connected to the bottom of the river, forming a stable pyramid structure. The rapid scouring of the water pounced onto his head in an instant. The powerful pressure from the outside world was transmitted in layer by layer, transforming into energy and information. It was transmitted between the millions and millions of nerves, blood vessels, and fiber tissues. In the end, it formed a weak but just right stimulation. It was like a tiny spark that was thrown into the center of gravity where Luonan's consciousness was located. It was as if he had thrown himself into a deep pool filled with kerosene. Boom! The flames leaped and soared, practically engulfing everything. Of course, this wasn't a true fire. It could only be said that the pouring of his consciousness had magnified this feeling. But when Luonan's consciousness shifted away and he sensed normally, there was clearly a mass of warm energy radiating from his lower abdomen. It was at this moment that the pure white water level of the U-shaped symbol on his retina suddenly dropped. It dropped all the way to a third of its original value before it barely stopped falling. But it still trembled endlessly. The momentum didn't look too good, but Luonan could feel a sense of control and acuity that corresponded with his body's sensations. Chapter 179. Luonan opened his eyes, but he still maintained his sitting posture. He let the penetrating cold water flow shatter the ice and continuously beat against his chest. Occasionally, a cold blade splashed out. It seemed to be able to penetrate the defense of the tactical helmet and directly cut his face. It also seemed to be releasing mocking whispers, Ha, what's appearing in your body right now? Jumping. What appeared was the archetype format. What jumped was the format of fire. Luo Nan did not immediately jump down from the starship high-back chair. He had already expected this result. He was even looking forward to it. If it was a week or two ago, he might have refused this opportunity out of some sort of self-esteem. But when he used the format of "My heart's a prison" to subdue the human-faced arachnid, to construct the format pyramid, to enter the out-of-body state, and to observe reality and illusion, many of his thoughts were greatly different. Only when a person had a firm foothold could they use an unhurried and objective attitude to face the problems of reality. Luo Nan was already convinced that the formatting theory he had inherited did indeed have practical effects. It was not inferior to the archetype format in any way. It was even more magical on the mental plane. But he also admitted that the archetype format had gone very deep into the development and application of the body's potential. It had already established a relatively complete system standard. It was an extremely amazing thing to be able to successfully reproduce it in the virtual reality system. What he needed to do right now was to dig deep into the mysteries within. From the archetype format itself to the source of reproduction and technology, he would not let a single strand slip by. The water level of the U-shaped symbol continued to fluctuate and fall, showing that Luo Nan's internal energy reserves were continuously being consumed. However, this consumption had already shown its value. Right now, the temperature manifested by the internal energy in Luo Nan's lower abdomen was very real. Even under the pressure of the cold, it still firmly wrapped around his abdomen, causing his entire internal organs to feel a bit warm. Luo Nan got up and moved his hands and feet a bit. The effects of the internal energy manifesting were even more obvious under the state of movement. The energy of his entire body had an axis. Admittedly, heat was being consumed at all times, but a considerable portion was controlled, circulated, and flowed through the axis. It flowed from his upper limbs to his lower limbs, from places with high heat to places with low heat. It was naturally and efficiently distributed, maintaining the normal functions of the body. Luo Nan felt as if the outer layer of his skin and flesh had formed an armor propped up by heat. The bone-piercing cold didn't seem that unbearable anymore. Yes, that's it. This was the same nervous system control effect that Luo Nan had tried repeatedly in Frost River Room 3. But when it comes to the precision of the hypothalamus, if this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. When it came to complex structures, he gave up because he wasn't confident. But now, through internal energy and the archetype format, everything was done easily and naturally. When Luo Nan observed from the perspective of a bystander, he was able to sense that the front and back areas of the hypothalamus were stimulated, as well as the hot and cold sensors that covered the entire body. They coordinated and stimulated the tissues of the body up, down, inside, and outside in a highly resonant manner. They transported heat to and fro, forming a fine heat net that covered the entire body. The nerves, blood vessels, muscle fibers, and even more secretive and fine conduction pathways were involved. Compared to Luo Nan's own imagination, this regulation method was more than 1,000 times more complicated. However, this method of regulation was not brain-burning. All he needed to do was think about it and send out an unclear command. The archetype format completed all of this with the support of the internal energy reserve. Luo Nan began to walk forward with large strides. The effects of the heat armor were extremely outstanding. Even though the water level of the waterway gradually rose and the surface of contact between the ice water and his body grew larger and larger, his body's reactions became more and more sensitive. He could easily avoid the enormous floating ice that was washed down by the rapid current. He could also feel the rapid and unstable undercurrents, controlling his body in time to maintain his balance. Soon he walked 200 to 300 meters away, far exceeding all previous records. It's really important to have a good software. Luo Nan suddenly felt a bit emotional. Because of the existence of the archetype format, he didn't need to directly face the complex and precise nervous system. Instead, he could use his internal energy to control it and realize idiot-like operations. He could focus more of his energy on responding to external stimuli. Luo Nan's self-format was the same. Did he know how to control the human-faced arachnid? Did he know how to increase his believers? He didn't know a single thing. Even if he had 10 times the strength he had right now, he would still need to personally experience all the details. He would need to dig all the way from the application all the way to the bottom layer. He would need to complete every link perfectly. But because he had the format pyramid of, "My heart's a prison," everything became easy. All he needed to do was to unearth the potential of the format pyramid, provide it with the required energy and experiment with more efficient application methods. That was all. The current situation was quite interesting. The majority of Luo Nan's self-format targeted the soul and the mental plane. It didn't have any special effects on the fleshly body. The archetype format mobilized the potential of the human body to a large degree. It fully realized the control and application of various parts of the human body. But in the mental domain, the results could only be described as mediocre from the various examples he had seen recently. What were the factors that caused these two to be? This chapter has yet to end. Please continue to the next page. How could there be such a large divergence in the theory of originating from the same source? Thinking a step further, if the two were to be combined, would it be possible to create a formatting software that could be used simultaneously on the mental and material planes? Luo Nan was unable to find an answer for a time, but he was very clear on one point. Right now he could only be said to be in contact with the archetype format software for the first time. His body hadn't truly formed the archetype format. The reason was very simple. The stimulation the archetype format gave his body right now, whether it was the operation of his brain and spinal cord, or the arrangement of the 43 cranial nerves and spinal nerves, all of them were different from his own format. The two were similar in design concept, but the details and emphasis were completely different. They could be compared but they couldn't be confused. What he sensed right now was nothing more than the stimulation the system gave him. In essence, it was just like the incessant pounding of the icy stream of water. It was just some sort of data model projected onto his body. Though its effects were real and it really did stir up a portion of his strength, transforming his internal energy reserves and igniting the format of fire, its foundation was still empty. Luo Nan wasn't disappointed. The archetype format wasn't something he could casually use when it came to the modification of the deeper mechanisms of the body. It was already beyond his imagination that he could experience it for himself. The majority of Luo Nan's attention was projected onto his own body. His perception of the outside world gradually blurred. The only thing he could experience was the depth of the water. Right now, the icy water had already gradually submerged his chest, followed by his neck. Walking normally was practically impossible. Luckily, Luo Nan knew a bit about water, so he was able to walk and swim. But in this way he had completely lost his grasp of time and distance. Right now, had he traveled 500 meters? Right when Luo Nan was about to look for the system to confirm, he felt a void beneath his feet. The tip of his toes could no longer reach the bottom. From here on out, the depth of the water exceeded his height. This was fine, but the problem was that the thick layer of rock above the water's surface was already within reach. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before the water completely submerged this long passageway. Not even the slightest crack would be left. The second stage. Right when Luo Nan was considering how to pass through this stage, a rumbling sound rang out. The rock wall behind him collapsed and another stream of water rushed out. The two streams of water collided, forming a vortex of extraordinary strength. It instantly sucked him in and flung him fiercely, smashing him against the uneven cliff wall. He was smashed stupidly on the spot. His tactical helmet was damaged and the icy stream assaulted him. What hotnet? What armor? None of it was of any use. Luo Nan's consciousness fainted and the world shifted in an instant. Chapter 180. I failed again. But the difficulty has clearly increased. That's right, it's specially designed for burners. Luo Nan withdrew from the Frost River waterway. He didn't plan on continuing the experience for the time being. He just sat on the high-back starship chair and squinted his eyes. He felt the discomfort of his body after the stimulation signals left his body one after another. Even without the scouring pressure of the icy water, his body seemed to have become several dozen kilograms heavier. The coordination of his various parts seemed to have problems. His entire body was like an old machine without oil. His joints were a bit stiff. There was also the soreness and twitching caused by the tearing of some of his muscle fibers. This was the contrast caused by the separation of the archetype formats model. The amount of discomfort he felt right now was proof of the large gap between his body's standards and that of a passing standard. Only after a minute did Luo Nan begin to move his fingers. He regained control of his suddenly unfamiliar body. An analytical light screen had already been erected in front of the high-back chair at this time. It displayed the factors of success and failure in this waterway adventure in an unending stream. Luo Nan habitually looked at the evaluation first. The evaluation on it was unprecedentedly harsh. As a burner, the basic archetype format has made an unbelievably low-level error. The distribution of internal energy is at the beginner level. The coordination between the body and internal energy is close to zero. It is recommended that the format be immediately examined for errors and undergo strict foundational training. If necessary, the format should be reforged. It's that bad? Luo Nan rubbed his head. He couldn't help but laugh. Perhaps it was because the system's requirements had suddenly increased by a lot according to the standards of a burner. Then a three-dimensional image of a full body appeared on the holographic screen. Red and green dots of light and blue and white lines marked the densely packed nodes and silhouettes. The red dots representing errors could be said to be ghastly to the eye. Luo Nan was a bit surprised by this. Since it's a template chosen for the Dynamo core, how come there are so many errors? He casually chose a red dot on his chest and several dots in the surrounding area lit up. It even involved another set of nodes far away in his legs. It showed that there was a very systematic connection between them. And on the holographic screen to the side, a close-up of the corresponding area appeared. There was a clear diagram on it showing the internal energy as the axis. The relevant energy and information flowed, converged and transformed within the special structure of this area. This included mutual interference and even the material layer. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. The facial nerves, blood vessels, muscle fibers, bones and internal organs were directly or indirectly affected. Even though Luo Nan didn't fully understand many of the models and formulas, he had the basic concept of the circulation of energy and information. He was able to more or less guess many of the parts. It was hard and strenuous for him to read for a time, but he enjoyed it with keen interest. Very quickly he found the problem. No wonder there were so many errors. Many of the nodes on the archetype format were actually affected by the interference of the self format. They were misaligned or confused. Even though Luo Nan had deliberately distinguished between the problems of the virtual world and the real world, he had formed his instincts over the past 5 years. His soul strength had increased greatly in recent days, and his imprints had continued to deepen. These imprints could not be easily erased. It could be seen from the playback system that the archetype format model had transformed in less than half a minute after it covered Luo Nan's body. Many key nodes had been displaced, and the virtual format of fire had yet to ignite. What was strange was that he was still able to successfully ignite, the first time when many pairs of nerve wiring were disrupted and distorted. What kind of logic was this? Luo Nan subconsciously pressed his hand against his lower abdomen. He didn't know if it was because of the heat conduction from his palm or something else, but he actually faintly felt that there really was a bit of warmth in this position. It gathered and did not disperse. Oh, strange. Luo Nan was puzzled no matter how he thought about it. He could only continue to refer to the system's analysis and playback in search of the reason. But as he watched and watched, he was faced with the comprehensive, thorough and all-encompassing analysis screen. He was a bit stunned. Just this error correction system alone was something that his current family workshop style of research on the format was absolutely incapable of reaching. With such a system, with such timely and accurate simulation, playback and error correction methods, as long as one had a bit of talent and knowledge in this area and was able to put in hard work, it would be very difficult for one not to succeed over the years. No wonder the Deep Blue Walkers had already gathered the scale of 4 or 5 divisions in a short 5 or 6 years. And they were still continuing to expand. The archetype format theory had indeed soared to the skies in one bound after obtaining the support of capital and political power. The possibility of realizing a counterattack against it in the current social context was close to zero. As expected, I can only expand my influence in the ability user society. This chapter is not finished. Please continue to the next page. I've made some progress as a psychic or as a scout, but it's far from enough. It's far from enough. Luonan was a bit distracted. It was also at this time that his wristband vibrated. He received a call. It was Emochio. Third brother? Nanster, where are you? Emochio went straight to the point. Luonan was a bit startled. I'm upstairs. Where are you upstairs? Forget it. You can come down now. Actually, Emochio didn't care where Luonan was. He let out a long breath when he got through to him. Come to the guide desk in the reception hall. I'll wait for you here. Third brother, what's going on? It's nothing. Peng 17 just played with fire and overreacted a bit. I think it's best to go home and rest early. Hurry up and come down. The two hung up and Luonan frowned. This third brother Chia was clearly lying. His words contained a forceful calmness. He probably didn't want a kid like him to worry. But the nervousness in his words had long since sold him out. What happened? Luonan's mind spun a few times, but he didn't tarry. He took off his peripheral equipment and walked out of the VIP room. As he was about to close the door, he remembered that Hu Huaying was the one treating. According to etiquette, he should at least give her a heads up. But he didn't give her a way to contact him. Luonan shook his head and walked quickly to the elevator. Not long after, he saw the two pretty guides. The long-haired and short-haired guides revealed sweet smiles. They raised their hats playfully from afar. Hello, officer. Luonan nodded in response. He walked closer and said to the two, when Senior Hu comes over, you guys tell him that I have business to attend to. I'll be leaving first. The short-haired guide opened her eyes wide. Officer Luo, aren't you going to play a bit longer? It hasn't even been an hour. No, I have business to attend to. Luonan nodded to the two and walked toward the elevator. The two guides looked at each other when they saw Luonan's hurried appearance. They bowed in unison. We will definitely pass on your message. The elevator's door rang and opened to the side. Luonan was just about to enter when he saw 4 or 5 people walking out, laughing and laughing. They all looked drunk. One of them was Hu Huaying. Chapter 181. Luonan saw Hu Huaying and Hu Huaying also saw Luonan. This bro's heat had yet to subside. She immediately staggered forward, patted Luonan's shoulder and hugged him. Junior Nan, what's up? Playing by yourself is boring? I just happened to bring a bunch of brothers over. Let's start the game together and play Wilderness? Or something more exciting. Zhou Senior Hu. My friend has something to do over there. Let me go down. I'll be taking my leave first. Luonan was polite. He didn't want to get tangled up with this drunkard. Hu Huaying blinked her eyes. Her mind was still not clear. My friend invited me over to play. We're all very familiar with each other. I usually play with Junping. He raised his hand wanting to introduce them one by one, but Luonan grabbed his forearm. Luonan locked gazes with Luonan and spoke softly, no need, senior. There will be opportunities in the future. Hu Huaying was suddenly at a loss for words. After a few sounds, she finally knew how to respond. That's fine too. A few other drunkards surrounded the entrance of the elevator at this time. They had long since sized Luonan up. Most of them had no interest in him, but they were more interested in the two charming guides. Luonan gave Hu Huaying another nod. He turned his body and squeezed past this group of people. The person in the middle was probably drunk to the point of numbness. His body wasn't nimble. He bumped into Luonan's shoulder and staggered. His eyes widened as he wanted to flip out, but he was pulled away by the person beside him, making a path for himself. It wasn't Hu Huaying who pulled him away, but another acquaintance. Luonan's gaze swept over to that side and he saw Lu Tao's scholarly face wearing glasses. It could be seen that this person was probably the most clear-headed out of all of them. Seeing Luonan shift his gaze over, Lu Tao lightly adjusted his glasses. The corner of his mouth twitched as a greeting, but his expression was a bit stiff. It seemed like she hadn't decided whether she should pretend not to know him or treat him as an acquaintance. He was probably at Lu Tao's place, but he wasn't sure whether or not Luonan would be able to recognize him. Little did Luonan know that Luonan's impression of Luonan had already surpassed that of Lian Yu, Li Xueqing and the others, who had crossed paths with Luonan and clashed with Lian Yu and Li Xueqing back on the warship. But since he was so conflicted, Luonan would just pretend that he didn't know him. Seeing Lu Tao here solved one of Luonan's doubts. No wonder he encountered drunkards one after another tonight. Sure enough, a bunch of second-generation rich kids were having a gathering here. Thinking about it, there were not many people in all of Xia City who could treat Frost River Reality as a hotel or restaurant. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. I didn't see Huang Bingjin. Luo Nan entered the elevator and nodded once more towards Hu Huaying in greeting. Soon the elevator door slowly closed amidst the bidding farewell of the pretty guide. Lu Tao watched as the metal doors of the elevator closed. He confirmed that Luo Nan couldn't see him anymore. He finally let out the breath he had been holding in his throat. He didn't have much drunkenness to begin with, but all of it was let out with this breath. He turned his head and wanted to ask Hu Huaying, "Why is this guy here?" But the latter was still smiling and waving at the elevator door. Cursing inwardly, Zhou Xian hesitated for a moment before raising his wrist to contact someone. Who knew that another sound would ring out at this time? The elevator door that had just closed suddenly opened once more. Luo Nan was still alone in the elevator that was supposed to go down. His gaze swept across the faces of the group of drunkards outside the elevator. Lu Tao's heart suddenly twitched. His raised wrist froze in place. Luo Nan's gaze finally stopped on Hu Huaying's body. He revealed a faint smile and raised his wrist as well. He took a step forward. "Senior Hu. Leave me your contact details." Hu Huaying was baffled. She slapped her head when she heard this. "Look at my brain. Come. Let's add each other as friends. Let's keep in touch when we're in school." The two's wrists lightly touched and they added each other as friends on their wristbands. Hu Huaying enjoyed Luo Nan's display of goodwill. She patted Luo Nan's shoulder a few times. Luo Nan smiled as he accepted it, but he wasn't in a hurry to retreat. His gaze swept around and inexplicably locked onto Lu Tao's face. At this moment, Lu Tao looked straight into Luo Nan's eyes. Lu Tao's heart seemed to suddenly stop beating the moment his gaze made contact with those unclear pupils. He clearly knew that this reaction was too clumsy. He wanted to adopt a natural posture, but how could the instinctive reaction of the human body be controlled just because he wanted to? Lu Tao didn't know what kind of expression he had right now. He could only see that Luo Nan's gaze was fixed on his face. The smile he gave to Hu Huaying was still there, but he felt that something was wrong. Luo Nan's gaze moved down approximately half a second later. Luo Nan's eyes seemed to have a magnetic force. Lu Tao unconsciously moved down as well, just in time to see his own raised arm. In an instant, it was as if his arm had been branded by a red-hot branding iron. He suddenly pulled back and struck his own chest. Luo Nan's voice didn't fluctuate in response to this utterly terrible reaction. "Senior Lu. Let's add each other as friends?" This chapter has yet to end. Please turn the page. Okay. Lu Tao didn't even know what he was saying. He watched Luo Nan's arm move forward. He was like a marionette as he moved his arm forward. A slight vibration indicated that the two had finished adding each other as friends. On the other side, Hu Huaying's somewhat blank eyes hooked back. She said vaguely, "You guys know each other?" When these words entered his ears, it was as if Lu Tao had been struck by lightning. He was stupefied on the spot. Luo Nan acted as if nothing had happened. He retreated back into the elevator and answered simply, "We've seen each other quite a few times last week. See you seniors." The elevator door closed once more and the number indicated that it had gone down. At this time the other three people that Luo Nan had ignored began to come back to their senses. They were both baffled and annoyed. Someone said, "This fellow is quite arrogant. Where did he come from?" Lu Tao was already unable to hear Hu Huaying's reply clearly. His mind was a bit absent-minded right now. He raised his wrist and the contact list interface still displayed Luo Nan's name. He scrolled forward and saw that the contact he had just tried to make was not too far away. At this very moment, the wristband that was as light as a feather was clearly pressing down on his wrist. No. That fellow actually isn't that amazing. Lu Tao did his best to recall last week's incident at the restaurant. Luo Nan's miserable appearance when Yen Yonghua had casually soaked him. But in the end, all the images returned to the depths of Luo Nan's mottled pupils. The demonic and cold colors suffocated him to the point where he nearly suffocated. Lu Tao couldn't help but smack his head. "F*ck me. Your brain is broken. You think you're smart. Daoist? What are you doing? Hu Huaying had a baffled expression on her face. I didn't know that you and Luo Nan were in contact. Did you also get to know him through Brother Ping? Lu Tao gaped. He didn't know how to respond at all. In the end, he raised his wrist once more. The contact list on the screen scrolled up and down along with his eyeballs, tossing back and forth between two names. Right when he didn't know what to do, one of the two names suddenly enlarged. It nearly filled his eye sockets. Huang Bingjin. The call connected. This idiot whose brain was half grainy and the other half was hallucinogenic shouted with his big tongue. Taos. Hurry up and come over. All of you come over. I'll let you experience what supernatural powers are. Chapter 182. Luo Nan walked out of the elevator and raised his wrist to look at his wristband. The friend he just added didn't have any reaction. This was normal. He didn't expect a bit of psychological suggestion to be able to completely subdue the scheming Lu Tao. The various neurotransmitters on the material plane of the human body were encoded and encrypted. It was impossible for Luo Nan to see through all of Jack's thoughts with a glance and even affect his thoughts and emotions. Plus, his most capable wraith sign wasn't by his side. However, it wasn't difficult to see through the general emotional inclination of a target, especially when the target harbored malicious intent. Luo Nan didn't pay much attention to Lu Tao in the beginning. He could only blame his own guilty conscience. His series of actions were filled with awkwardness, especially when the elevator doors closed for the first time. Lu Tao looked as if he had been relieved of a heavy burden. Lu Tao certainly didn't know that Luo Nan didn't need his eyes to observe. Next, he just needed a bit of simple logic. Luo Nan thought about how Lu Tao perfectly avoided the limelight after his conflict with Huang Bingjin and how he promptly showed himself. Luo Nan could roughly guess that Lu Tao must have discovered Luo Nan when he was spying on Huang Bingjin. It didn't matter if Lu Tao was helping Huang Bingjin vent his anger or if Lu Tao had some other goal. Lu Tao definitely had bad intentions. Luo Nan naturally gave Lu Tao a bit of psychological suggestion in return. Under the overwhelming superiority of the mental plane, the consequences of this bit of psychological suggestion depended on Lu Tao's choice. Luo Nan walked in the opposite direction into the reception hall amidst the bustling stream of people and virtual images. He accurately found Immochio's position. It was just as Immochio said. He was waiting in front of the guide desk in the reception hall. But what was different from what Luo Nan had expected was that this third brother of his was all by himself. There was not a single person by his side. Even his target of friendship, Xianxia, was nowhere to be seen. Luo Nan squeezed through the stream of people and greeted, "Third brother, where are Mo Peng and the others?" Immochio didn't give a direct answer. He just forcefully put on a calm expression. "Nanster, you're here. Let's wait a bit longer. Mo Rue and Mo Han will be here soon." Luo Nan wasn't in the mood to beat around the bush. He directly said, "Did something happen to Mo Peng and the others? Did they offend someone and cause a conflict?" Luo Nan saw Immochio's stupefied expression as soon as he spoke. Luo Nan confirmed that he had hit the bullseye. Immochio's first reaction was, "Mo Peng contacted you?" Luo Nan spread his hands. "I'm just guessing." At this moment, Luo Nan's mature behavior made Immochio overlook Luo Nan's age. He also forgot the so-called elder brother style that he had been trying to put on to comfort Luo Nan. Immochio unconsciously sighed. Actually, Immochio also felt quite wronged. He really didn't know the specifics of the situation. When it happened, he was chatting with Xianxia in Area C. By the time he received the news and rushed over, it was already too late. It seems like Mo Cheng's team was provoked when they were practicing. Both sides engaged in a virtual battle and they fought for real. Players from both sides were forced to go offline due to excessive stimulation, and then it turned into a real fight. This wasn't a big deal. In competitive games, challenges and provocations were a part of the game. In the case of high degree of realism, it was common for hot-blooded young people to be unable to hold back their anger and turn virtual confrontations into real-life PK. Generally speaking, a large amusement park like Frost River Reality would always have corresponding control measures to prevent the situation from worsening. However, today was a strange day. When Immochio received the news and rushed over, the conflict suddenly intensified. Mo Tao, Mo Peng and even Tianqi, who were not part of the team and did not really fight before, were all involved. It truly became a group fight. The scene of intense loss of control was captured by the public security monitoring system of the public place. It automatically alerted the police. Now Frost River reality could no longer suppress the situation. Police machinery arrived on the scene and anti-riot guns were pointed at the group of young people who were high. They instantly fell to the ground. In a few short minutes they were all carried into police cars. Right now the police cars were parked outside. Even the police were alarmed. It really was a big scene that people always did. Huang Bingzhen's face first flashed in Luo Nan's mind, then Lu Tao's face. He felt that this method of borrowing force to fight force and easily extricate himself was more likely to be done by Lu Tao. Of course this was just a guess. Mo Chio on the other hand had more ideas. He noticed that the people who provoked them looked like gangsters. He was afraid that there would be gangsters involved, so he first found a few of his companions who were scattered in the amusement park to ensure their safety. No matter what, this night was destined to be terrible. At this time Mo Rui, Mo Han and Qin Xiaolin hurried over. The three girls had gone to play the Uncanny Valley game together. They were not with the main group, so they were able to avoid the conflict. But Qin Xiaolan, who was not a man, was taken into a police car because she participated in the gang fight. Mo Chio saw Qin Xiaolin approach and felt a headache. He did not know how to explain and comfort her. In the end, Mo Chio could not avoid explaining the situation to the girls. But the girls' reactions were more or less outside of his expectations. The relatively quiet Mo Rui was fine, but Mo Han instantly jumped up. It must be that Huang Bingzhen. That guy doesn't look like a good person at first glance. He found someone to retaliate against us. The first thing she thought of was that rotten person. It could be seen that Huang Bingzhen's hugging action gave Mo Han a huge psychological shadow. Qin Xiaolin appeared to be even calmer. She did not panic over her sister being detained. Instead she asked, "Have you determined who is responsible? We only know that the other side provoked us first." Mo Chio was helpless when he said these words. "Which police station are you being taken to?" "This. Let me ask." Right now Tianxi was in charge of the police station. When Mo Chio made the call to understand the information, he suddenly felt very embarrassed. His performance in this matter seemed to have been crushed by this 16 or 17-year-old girl, Qin Xiaolin. Embarrassment was embarrassment, but it did not delay Mo Chio from getting back the exact information. "It's the Fudong Sub-Bureau. They'll be taken care of nearby." Qin Xiaolin nodded and turned to Luo Nan. "Leicester's father works in the city police station. He's quite familiar with them. Right?" Shuelei was rushing over right now. Luo Nan did not say anything. He just raised his hand toward Qin Xiaolin, indicating that the same matter did not need to be handled by two people. It was better to let these people who were more familiar with the police force communicate. However, Luo Nan shook his head in his mind when he saw Qin Xiaolin calmly mentioning Shuelei. He did not believe that this exchange could redeem anything. Qin Xiaolin did not refuse. She walked to the side to talk to Shuelei. Chapter 183. Lu Tao stood in front of the luxurious room in Area A, whose specifications were second only to the VIP floor. He hesitated for a moment before finally pushing the door open and entering. The room was dim. Practically all of the lights were off. The only place with a wall lamp was the resting area in the corner. There were two scantily clad women lying there in a daze. Their bodies were intertwined and they seemed to be asleep yet not asleep. Clearly they had taken too many drugs. Seeing this scene, Lu Tao furrowed his brows. This idiot. Does he not want to mingle here anymore? Does he really think Yin Lu is some sort of madam who runs a place? Thinking about it again, Huang Bingzhen not bringing the two women to the VIP area was still rational. Lu Tao tried to use this reason to convince himself. However, when he turned around and adapted to the dim light in the room, he was able to clearly distinguish the blurry silhouettes of the people in the operating area. He felt that he had gone blind. He should not have placed his hopes on this idiot. In the dim operating area, Huang Bingzhen was wearing a tactical helmet. He waved his arms and his body staggered as he circled around the central area. Apart from that helmet, this bastard was completely naked. This guy is finished. Lu Tao had always believed that young masters like him who were born with a golden spoon in their mouths, playing around with women and looking for fun was nothing. However, there had to be a limit. In this already preposterous and unbridled world, a guy who continued to pursue extreme stimulation was destined to not live long. For someone like Huang Bingzhen who indulged in alcohol, drugs and women, he would reinvent every single one of them without restraint. Sooner or later he would torment himself to death. In fact, he was more or less the same now. Ever since this guy joined some order in the Mystic Arts Research Society, he had forcefully found the meaning of eternity in his depraved and preposterous life. Normally he was still fine. However, once he got involved in alcohol and drugs, the circuitry of his brain would completely move towards an inhuman realm. If it wasn't for the Huang family's sponsorship of the Mystic Arts Research Society being extremely high, and if it wasn't for this fellow having an iron vote in the society, which was the crux of the bid for gear, Lu Tao wouldn't have gotten involved with this sort of person. Lu Tao was hesitating whether or not to greet this madman when Huang Bingzhen let out an "ah" and knelt on the ground. First he heavily kowtowed, then he let out a strange laugh. The laughter squeezed out from the helmet was stifling and irritating. What a pervert! Lu Tao was badly frightened by this blow and his whole body jumped a small step back. This chapter is not finished. Please continue. This chapter is not finished. That guy knelt on the ground and turned his head to look over. The pitch-black helmet covered his face, making him look comical and eerie. Taozi, your ideas aren't very good. These guys are all very arrogant. Lu Tao didn't understand what it meant. But then the operating area was illuminated by the light of a projector. The image displayed was the situation inside an escort police car. And Tao's eyes, Lu was that Tao was to be in. These were all recorded by a certain gangster's camera, allowing Huang Bingzhen to observe the entire process of the conflict. This method was learned from Li Xueqing. However, Li Huang, but he to Li Tao's he Li's Ling Lu Tao thought of Luonan when he saw this situation. His mind was at a loss, but he answered carelessly, "What you want is to separate them. Aren't these girls all alone now? What you do next is up to you. It has nothing to do with me." Though he said this, he was relieved to see that Huang Bingzhen was not impatient to make a move and do something unbearable. "Alone, my ass. Their brother is like a shepherd dog. Hey, where are they?" Huang Bingzhen discovered that Lu Tao was the only one who came in. He was a bit dissatisfied. Lu Tao subconsciously rubbed his wristband. He laughed. "They're all drunk. How can they come over?" "Who says we can't come over?" The door behind him was slammed open. Hu Huaying and the others staggered in. She shouted, "You two are sneaking around. What the hell are you doing?" "Fuck me." Lu Tao felt his entire body turn bad. The reason why he came over secretly behind Hu Huaying and the others was because he did not want the matter involving Luonan to be exposed. He wanted to give Lu Tao some room to maneuver. But this group of drunkards came in. How could he waver? Control the situation? Huang Bingzhen suspiciously swept a glance at Lu Tao's face. He immediately became excited because of the sudden increase in the number of people in the room. He did not pursue the matter too much. "It's good that you came. You bastards. You usually say that I'm researching those weird things. Now I'll let you experience what the true rulers of the future era are. Your bullshit things should have been swept into the trash a long time ago." Huang Bingzhen completely ignored the hissing from Hu Huaying and the others. "This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page." He had already entered a state of incoherent speech. He was dancing with joy, and over there. Those two over there. He was referring to the two drugged girls. The problem was that they were the ones who were truly drunk. How could they have any reaction? Huang Bingzhen cursed and ran over by himself. Under the incredulous gazes of Lu Tao and the others, Huang Bingzhen actually grabbed one girl with each arm and lifted the two girls over. He placed them on the left and right sides of the operating area. No way. Their combat strength is this strong after taking drugs. Lu Tao was truly stupefied. The two girls weighed 180 pounds each. They were also in a semi-conscious state. They simply didn't know how to cooperate, so they could only be heavier. But Huang Bingzhen, this weak chicken, was actually able to forcefully grab one girl with each hand. If he had this kind of strength when he clashed with Luo Nan's group, how could he have been in such a difficult situation? At the same time, Lu Tao also noticed that Huang Bingjin was quite particular when he placed the two girls. He placed them in a diagonal position. He absolutely did not place them carelessly. Huang Bingjin's actions were so obvious that Hu Huaying and the other drunkards could see it. Someone laughed. Oh ho. Sup, you want to play a ritual? How come I heard that a certain person can't even draw a complete magical spell even though he's been in the guild for so many years? Layman, shut your mouths. In this era, how stupid is it to play with that one stroke at a time? This is enough for me. Huang Bingjin waved his hand and erased the video from the police car. He then snapped his fingers and an enormous projection covered the operating area in an instant. Triangles, pentagrams, hexagrams, circles, and all sorts of mysterious and unfathomable symbols pieced together to form a three-dimensional diagram. It was like an enormous multi-layered cake, covering everyone within in an instant. Snow white, deep blue, dark green, dark gold, and all sorts of other colors were reflected in front of everyone's eyes. Lu Tao saw a gear-like diagram in front of him. It was pieced together and rotated, giving him an indescribable feeling. What are you playing at? The dusky room suddenly lit up with such an intense light. It was very dazzling to Hu Huaying's eyes. He blinked and squinted his drunken eyes. He was a bit at a loss. Playing? Fine. Let's just take it as playing. Let's play a little swap experiment to prepare for the future holy swap. Huang Bingjin took off his helmet, revealing a face suffused with a dark red halo. This color even seeped into his pupils, mixing together with the surrounding blurry colors of light. It was mottled and bewitching. Lu Tao shivered when he saw this pair of eyes. This mottling was Luo Nan's style. Chapter 184. The instant of oppression caused Lu Tao's mind to go blank for a period of time. During this time, his fingertip, which had been pressed against his wristband, instinctively made a move. The wristband vibrated soundlessly, starting the recording function. When Lu Tao regained his senses, he already didn't want to change anything. At this time he saw Huang Bingjin circling around the magical projection array, moving in a crooked circle. He even reached out to touch those illusory lines and structures, as if caressing the tender skin of a beauty. His face was filled with intoxication. Look, this is the holy space. The others in the room were dumbfounded. They couldn't keep up with this madman's train of thought. Huang Bingjin was proud of these people's performance, but at the same time he felt a little disappointed. For this reason he was willing to waste his breath to explain to these ignorant people. Do you know how it is built? Do you know what it is used for? Regardless of whether or not the others wanted to hear, Huang Bingjin continued to dance. The holy space is a mysterious domain that realizes exchange. Here you can give up one thing and use it to exchange for another thing of equal value. This way you can exchange for what you need and obtain the most perfect, most exquisite balance in the universe. Thanks to the blessing of the technological era, we only need one thing to build such a wonderful domain. What is it? What is it? Huang Bingjin's finger pointed at Hu Huaying, Lu Tao and the others, not letting a single one go. But no one interacted with him. Everyone was still in a state of confusion. Incorrigible idiots, are you talking about magical arrays? Aha, wrong, it's seeds. Seeds. Huang Bingjin himself could have fun, but Hu Huaying and the others felt like they were watching an absurd play. Moreover, they were forcefully pulled onto the stage, awkwardly participating in it. Huang Bingjin didn't have the slightest awareness of this. We only need to obtain a seed, and we can use it as a foundation using a fixed system mold, to germinate and build a holy space to carry the holy object. Where does the seed come from? Taoista, you must know. He was actually called out. Lu Tao really wanted to slap Huang Bingjin's face to see if he could wake this guy up. But facing Huang Bingjin's eyes, he really was a little scared. He could only force a smile. I couldn't guess it at first. Stupid, you've done a great service by plucking this seed. Huang Bingjin was like a passionate conductor. With a wave of his arm, there was a shadow in front of him. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. It was clearly shown that the gangsters had deliberately provoked and triggered a group fight. His hand swept and clenched in the projection as if he was grabbing something out of thin air. Then he waved his fist at Lu Tao. Lu Tao could roughly guess what Huang Bingzhen meant. The so-called seed was obtained from the group fight just now. What the hell is this? Lu Tao had to admit that his brain was not enough. His brain must have been fried by the drug. What the hell are you guys doing? Even if Hu Huaying was a little drunk, he was starting to feel that something was wrong. He turned his gaze towards Lu Tao. In his opinion, Lu Tao, who had arrived earlier, was obviously easier to communicate with and should know more. Lu Tao hesitated for a moment. He still didn't want to explain too clearly. He only vaguely said, he just suffered a loss at the hands of a group of people. He's not happy in his heart. I don't know what he's thinking. He suffered a loss? If you've suffered a loss, then get it back. What are you doing here? Did you meet someone you can't afford to offend? This shouldn't be the case. At least in Huang Bingzhen's mind, he had no concept of Luo Nan, the bomb. Only the heavens knew that there were simple and direct methods. Why did he have to do this? Then again, if he was able to understand Huang Bingzhen's thoughts, then wouldn't he be a madman? Lu Tao spread his hands with a helpless expression. Unable to get an answer from him, Hu Huaying staggered forward to pull Huang Bingzhen's shoulder. Brother Huang, don't be so mysterious. If you have something to say, then say it. If you have something to say, then do it. But Hu Huaying moved closer with good intentions, but he was pushed away by Huang Bingzhen. How could he maintain his balance right now? He immediately sat on the ground, stunned on the spot. Hey Huang Bingzhen. You're no fun like this. The other drunkard had a good relationship with Hu Huaying. He immediately wanted to stick up for Hu Huaying, but Huang Bingzhen's mottled demonic pupils turned to stare at his face in the next moment. Silence. Even though the experiment is small, it's still sacred. You were clearly the most noisy one just now. On the ground, Hu Huaying struggled to crawl up. He shouted, "This guy drank too much. Grab him. Wake him up." These people's family backgrounds were similar, but Frost River reality could barely be considered Hu Huaying's territory. He was the landlord, so they would listen to him. The drunkards immediately rubbed their fists and palms together. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. He saw an opportunity and charged forward with a howl. Lu Tao hesitated for a moment before following. Even though Huang Bingzhen's strength was extraordinarily great, there was a limit to it. He could not resist the combined strength of these people. His 5 limbs hung in the air, his 2 legs kicked wildly, and there was no place for him to exert his strength. His eyes were about to bleed. In the end, he had no other choice. He shouted with a hoarse voice, "Get the holy object! Get the holy object!" This group of people didn't care about the holy object. What mattered was making this kid sober up. Hu Huaying turned his head to look around. "Do you have any inhibitors? This kid doesn't want to live." But Hu Huaying's voice suddenly cut off. Lu Tao was the most sensitive, so he turned his head upon hearing the sound. Lu Tao saw the center of the so-called magic array. Marvelous black and white lines crisscrossed and weaved. They combined and constructed together, gradually forming a classical hanging scale that was half a person's height. The black and white plates were placed on one side. The frame in the center presented a smooth and contrasting arc. In the center there was a sculpture that looked like a Western crown. It was unknown what flower it was made of. 8 sharp hollow leaves, spread out in a ring shape, and there were 6 gems arranged in 2 rows at the center of the crown. The gems were of different colors, but the hue was rather dark. The design looked strange and gorgeous. At this moment, the black and white plates were placed on one side. Chains of the same color were divided into 3 strands that hung them up. They even swayed slightly as if they were real. "I think I've heard of this before?" Hu Huaying scratched his head. "It's the scales of truth." Lu Tao vaguely knew a little about this so-called holy object. It was not only very influential within the Mystic Arts Research Society, but it was also circulated among the wealthy circles of Xia City. It was just that Lu Tao had no interest in this sort of mysterious thing. He had never seriously understood it. Now it seemed that he had underestimated it in the past. In any case, it had some ability to turn a normal person into a retard. Huang Bingzhen became even crazier when he saw the scales of truth appear. He struggled as he screamed, "The world is fair. The truth is just. The daily exchange of this round's holy oracle's item has been fulfilled. I request an exchange. Exchange. Calm down. Oh my god. One of the drunkards slapped Huang Bingzhen's cheeks with all his might, but he was bitten by this fellow. The drunkard let out a blood-curdling scream and saw blood. Just as the drunkard was cursing out loud, his body inexplicably shook. He lowered his head to look and saw a sharp appendage protruding from his chest. It was hard to tell if it was real or illusory. Chapter 185. The order in the reception hall of Frost River reality grew more and more chaotic. Many people were attracted by the arrival of the police. The effects of the brawl were fermenting. At this time, Frost River reality was also having a headache. The person in charge was constantly negotiating with the police, hoping that the police would quickly take away all of the brawlers and put an end to the matter. However, the police still needed to conduct some on-site investigations, including Tianxia. The petite girl had been trying to communicate with the police. The three parties restrained each other, and for a while they were in a deadlock. Luo Nan and the others saw this scene when they walked out the door. Qin Xiaolin had just finished communicating with Shuelei and walked over to his side. Her expression was a little strange. Leister contacted his father. It seems that his uncle is on duty tonight. He just received a mission and went out. He's here. Such a coincidence. Luo Nan was astonished. He also found it very strange. His father is a special police officer, right? He's involved in this sort of public security issue? It seems like after the explosion in the R&D district, it has been in a state of alert. All the security issues in the central city have been upgraded. On the side, Emochio had a strange feeling. It was good to be able to find a solution to the problem, but the current situation made him feel a little awkward. He noticed that Qin Xiaolin, this mellow and precocious girl, had been discussing matters with Luo Nan from beginning to end after proposing the solution. She had placed him, the person with the most experience and age, to the side. Was it because they were familiar with each other? Qin Xiaolin had no time to care about Emochio's fragile heart. Her last encounter at the Limestone Water Village pub left a serious shadow in her heart, but it also made her understand that Luo Nan's identity was absolutely not as simple as an ordinary high school freshman. Luo Nan had taken that intense and terrifying scene as a matter of course, let alone now. Naturally, she had to find the person who could handle it the most. As Qin Xiaolin spoke, she shifted her gaze and glanced at several burly SWAT officers wearing exoskeleton armors outside the door. However, all the SWAT officers were wearing fully enclosed tactical helmets, and there was no obvious police rank logo on their armor. For a moment she could not tell which one was Shuelei's father, or if he was still at the scene in Area A. Luo Nan didn't deliberately search for them. If they were willing to help, they would certainly contact them. Otherwise, what would be the point of finding them? He roughly observed the situation and walked in the direction of the police car to check on Mo Peng and the others. No matter how he looked at it, this group fight was a little strange. He wanted to understand it further. But when he was 7 or 8 steps away from the police car, he was stopped by a cold metal arm. The one who stopped him was a special police officer. He was nearly 2 meters tall and he was looking down at him with a pitch-black visor. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. After that, he didn't give off a friendly vibe. The area ahead is controlled. Do not approach. The voice of the special police came from behind the helmet. Luo Nan did his best to put on a childish expression that matched his age. Officer, my brother is inside. I came with him. Is that so? The SWAT officer who was blocking the road gestured behind him. Immediately, one of his comrades came over and asked, Captain? Luo Nan was stupefied for a moment, but the special police officer blocking the road had already instructed, give the hospital a heads up. Let that group of people first take a urine sample in preparation for a drug test. Their emotions are too agitated. It might be the effect of the drug. How did he make that connection? Luo Nan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was baffled, but soon his mind stirred. His mental senses cut into the visor to confirm. Almost at the same time, the SWAT officer took off his helmet, revealing a square, middle-aged man's face. You're Luo Nan. Officer Shua. Uncle? Though the tone was quite different, the certainty and judgment within were completely the same. Luonan was a bit embarrassed. The police officer in front of him was none other than Officer Shui, who had personally arrested Xie Junping last week due to the illegal drugs in his phantom flying car. That was the first time Luonan had been arrested. It was impossible to not have a deep impression of him. He still remembered this person's name. It was Shui Weiluan. The word Shui couldn't be written twice in a single stroke. Plus, the location and position all matched. Luonan was certain that this tall and sturdy police officer was Shui Lei's father. He was also the target of their assistance. So Xia City really was quite small. Luonan had a strong first impression. He was able to find many similarities between Officer Shui and Shui Lei when he looked at him again. This could be used as verification. However, the other impression of Officer Shui didn't seem to have any positive effects. Shui Weiluan furrowed his brows and stared at Luonan. His gaze was like looking at a criminal suspect who had escaped by a fluke. That day, Luonan was silent and taciturn after being controlled. His rigid and uncooperative appearance left a deep impression on Shui Weiluan. Now Luonan looked a bit more cheerful, but it was limited. Leister said that you're a good friend of his. How long have you known each other? Just last week. Luonan felt that it was very likely that he would be interrogated by this Officer Shui. This was to prevent Shui Lei from mistakenly making friends with criminals. His wristband vibrated just as he was having a headache. He immediately whispered an apology and looked at the message on his wristband to alleviate the awkward and tense situation. The message unexpectedly came from Lu Tao, but it wasn't an instant message. Instead, it was an audio file. What the hell is this fellow up to? This chapter has yet to end. Please turn the page. Luonan subconsciously opened the audio file and an extremely exaggerated voice immediately came out. The holy space is a mysterious domain that can realize displacement. What followed was this voice's unceasing lecture. Magical spells, seeds, holy objects, and other special terms popped out one after another. Hu Huaying and Lu Tao's conversation was mixed in the middle. From this, Luonan could determine that this neurotic lecture came from Huang Bingzhen. Just as Luonan came to a conclusion, a commotion arose in the recording. After a series of chaos, an extremely sensitive term suddenly jumped out. The scales of truth? Luonan was suddenly agitated. Then he heard the other side say things like, the fairness of the world, the justice of truth. The answer was already clear. The order of justice. With such a high profile, the definition of a secret order was a bit unworthy of the name. And at this time, Luonan finally discovered that he had been listening to the recording for too long. Shui Weiluan didn't really care. On the contrary, he was listening very seriously. And openly. Luonan was a bit embarrassed. Shui Weiluan wasn't an ability user. Logically speaking, he shouldn't have been allowed to hear this information. The next few seconds were all filled with Huang Bingzhen's crazed shouts of displacement. Displacement. Luonan wanted to transfer it to his internal headphones and play it. But at this time, a sharp voice that had changed its tone due to fear suppressed everything. Spider. Spider? Luonan's thoughts had deviated a bit in an instant, but they were forcefully pulled back. The recording came to an abrupt end at this time. Luonan's expression turned very ugly. He immediately called Lu Tao, but no one picked up for a long time. Hu Huaying followed and the same thing happened. Luonan couldn't stop while he was on the phone. He turned around and walked inside. Shui Weiluan's expression had changed a long time ago. He saw Luonan walk back and wanted to grab him, but his hand hesitated halfway. He didn't exert force and instead followed Luonan with large strides. I've been pretending to be a dead dog for several days. The main reason is that I'm busy to death in class. The pace of updates is a complete mess. I don't have the face to say much. Now that I'm busy with the project, I don't really want to become a dead dog, so I'll make my stance clear. During the double monthly vote period, the atmosphere of the event wasn't lively due to my actions of pretending to be dead. Even though I have the strong support of many friends, it's true that I didn't fulfill my obligations. How about this? No matter what the monthly vote results are, I will first recognize the 50 chapters of the monthly vote and add chapters. In other words, even if I don't reach 5,000 monthly votes, I will guarantee the 50 chapters of the monthly vote. Starting tomorrow, I will guarantee 3 chapters every day. I will gradually adjust it to 4 chapters. Of course, if fellow readers are willing to break through the 5,000 vote mark, I will accept it. I'm currently losing weight. Thank you. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.